So today we are making the Everlea Mini, a downsized version of the original Everlea pattern. The mini version is kinda cute and more roomy as you would think. It's small but mighty. It just has two add-on pockets on the front and no handles, but let me show you all the details right now. So this is the finished bag that we are sewing today, and as you can see, we have two slip pockets on the side pieces, just wide enough for a phone. On the front you'll find two add-on pockets instead of three. The upper one from the original version is missing, but we do have a larger zipper pocket on top of it. So now you can see how far I can put my hand into the zipper pocket, how deep it goes. It goes until about here, so the lining goes down as far as possible. When we open up the bag, you see there's an interior slip pocket in there, and due to the bound structure, the bound finish of the main body, it gives the bag great structure. The D-rings are attached to the top just the same way as the original pattern. I just chosen smaller D-rings and not webbing for the D-ring tabs, and we have skipped the handles. So let's start preparing our pattern pieces and our fabrics and materials. So first you have to download your pattern. Please make sure you save it to your computer and open up from the save files, the Adobe Reader. Only print the pages that you really need, only the pattern pieces, and make sure that the format is the correct format for you, either US letter or DIN A4. Most importantly, scale your size to actual size or 100%, and when you print out your pattern pieces, check the control box if your measurements are correct. Now I'll show you which fabric types I've used for my mini version. So the bottom piece only is made from faux leather. The main body is made from water resistant canvas, like an outdoor fabric, and my interior is a lightweight cotton. When it comes to fabrics, it's really important not to use vinyl for the whole piece, especially for the add-on pockets on front. It's too bulky, don't do it, okay? So when it comes to interfacing, I've used Decophyllite for the main pieces. For volume, I've added some H630. This is a Pellon Thermalon in comparison, so it's quite similar. And for all my lining pieces, I've used G700 just because it gives the lining more grip. I like the finish. And for a slip pocket, you could use some H250, but only it's not really necessary. We do need some endless zipper tape and some webbing. And when it comes to the hardware, the slider and the swivel clasp need to be the same width as your webbing. 2 D-rings are required as well. Mine are 2 centimeters wide, and we do need 4 zipper pulls. On top of that, we shall have a special look at pattern piece A, because we need our front piece to be prepared a bit different. I suggest you to print out a second version just for the Decophyllite pieces on the volume fleece. So decide which piece should be the back and which one should be the front. I've used Decophyllite and the H630 on top, and you need to make a gap in the front piece interfacings only. So this is only for the front, and only cut the rectangular hole in the fleece and the Decophyllite, because there will be the front zipper pocket. But let's look at all the pieces what you need prepared for your Everlea Mini. So the A piece, you have to cut out 2 main and 2 lining pieces. The B piece, the side pieces, 2 main and 2 lining pieces as well. Side pockets, pocket C, 2 lining, 2 main. Now we talk about our front, the bottom first, I'm sorry. Bottom, 1 lining, 1 main. And the front pockets E and F, they do have a main and a lining piece. Volume fleece is not necessary. Some testers said they didn't need it. I put it on because I like it, but that's all personal taste, okay? So each pocket has a gusset from the zipper and the bottom piece. So the larger ones are for the E pocket and the shorter ones for the F pocket, pocket 2. So when you prepare your pieces, the less wider strips, they need to be in a 4-fold. So the 5 centimeter pieces, fold them to the center, fold the edges towards the center and fold again. So you have 4 layers stacked on top of each other, and press it just in prepare your pieces when you're fusing all your interfacings anyway. This is the interior slip pocket. You can make this from 2 lining pieces as well. I've made the one from main fabric just for a contrast. You need the front zipper pocket and the facing. The main zipper ends are not interfaced, same as the D-ring tabs. They don't need to be interfaced, and the main zipper tabs as well. So when it comes to the gusset pieces for the front pockets, it's important not to interface them, but you'll find all the info on the piece itself. We do need some bias tape as well, and then we can start with the side and bottom pieces first. We will sew the side pockets and attach them to the side piece and then connect them with the bottom. So we place the main and lining pieces right sides together and sew the top edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Fold the fabrics away from each other and top stitch the top edge. Here, the wider part is the top and not the bottom as the original version. It's shaped a bit differently, otherwise the slip pocket would be too small to fit anything. So, decide which side piece will get which side, and then baste the bottom and one side first, just like this in an L shape. Then you can align the other side edge and baste it as well. The reason for that is if you do it in one step, it could get crooked, so we need the top edge to sit correctly. So then we connect the side pieces with the bottom piece by aligning the short ends and sewing them with 1 centimeter seam allowance. When that is done, just fold the fabrics away from each other and finger press the seam allowance open. You can also iron it if you use a fabric that can be ironed or pressed without problems. I've used fall leather, so I will be doing this by finger pressing, and then I will top stitch on both side and bottom piece in a rectangular shape. Next, we will repeat this process with the lining fabrics as well, except we don't have an C piece here, so we connect the bottom and the sides, sew the short ends with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then top stitch on both pieces in a rectangular shape with the seam allowance being pressed open. So now we can place both pieces together on top of each other, wrong sides together, and baste them together along all outer edges. And all that there's left to do is simply mark the center and then set it aside. We will need this piece for final assembly in the end. So let's do the pockets 1 and 2. Like I said, no interfacing here on these gusset pieces. We need 2 zippers, one for each bias tape, and we will start by basting together the main and lining pieces as shown here in the picture together, wrong sides together, and set aside. Then we will make both gussets at the same time. So as we have prepared our gusset zipper pieces by a 4-fold, we can simply fold them together now and secure them with clips. So each zipper is the same length as the gusset zipper piece. Mine is a bit longer, maybe you like to do this too, and then in the end we will trim off some of the zipper tape. So don't be confused by the length of my zipper, I just like them to be a bit longer. Make sure both zippers close towards the left. If you like your zippers to close to the right, that's fine. Just make sure all zippers close to the same direction. My zipper is closing to the left, and I will place the zipper tape inside the fold of the gusset zipper piece. So the gusset zipper piece sits on top, zipper closing to the left on both pieces. And then I will secure this with clips and give it a top stitch to secure everything with stitches. And as you can see, my zipper tape is longer than the piece. Top stitch, and then just trim off the extra zipper tape on the side edges. So choose the right bottom piece for each zipper. They have the same length, so this is important. Place both pieces right side up and connect align them by the bottom edge. Fold down the bottom piece like this, so the zipper is inside the fold of the right side of the gusset bottom piece. Repeat with the other one too, and then sew the short ends with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Turn your gusset piece right side out and align the raw edges from the gusset bottom piece, wrong sides together. And what I like to do is I like to attach my bias tape to the gusset piece before assembly. It's a nice hack. I've added the link for the tutorial for this technique in the pattern, so on page 7 you'll find a link for the YouTube video. So this is just a quick view of what I'm doing. Is I just check if my bias is long enough, and then I will base it on the inside of my ring, aligned to the raw edges along the whole piece in a ring round shape, and I start a few centimeters below the beginning, and then when I get to the beginning again, I will fold this in a triangle shape and place it on top so they overlap a little bit, and then trim off the extra. If you like to do your binding in traditional way, simply just baste together the raw edges of the gusset bottom pieces so they will stay in place, and do the binding later. But if you never tried it, give it a try. It's a great way of binding your gussets. So then I will mark the center. The raw edges, no problem to make a snip. Of course, the folded edges, they cannot be snipped because we don't want to damage our gusset. So take some chalk. Another way you could mark this is just with masking tape. Just put a piece of masking tape on there, and then you can just simply draw on it with any kind of pen, and then remove the masking tape later. So next, look at your gussets and see the longer one is for pocket 1, and the shorter one, the smaller gusset, is for pocket number 2. And next we will connect the gussets to the main bodies by aligning it at the top and bottom center first, right sides together, and use some clips to secure the whole gusset on the main piece. For a better fit, I strongly suggest you to make some small snips into the gusset piece where it's placed above the curvy section of the main piece, just like small tiny snips. They will disappear in the seam allowance later on. When you've connected the whole gusset to the main piece, like here pocket 1, make sure everything sits correctly and even, and then do base the first round and then sew a second round with 7mm seam allowance. See, this is done in 2 rounds, a basting stitch and then the correct seam allowance. Since I've attached my bias tape to the piece before assembly, I can simply pull this up and fold it over the raw edges and then top stitch. If you haven't done this, of course you need to close your bias tape now. You need to bind the edges of the pocket now in a traditional way, whatever way you prefer. Turn the piece right side out and give it like a shape all the edges, curves, everything, shape out the zipper and kind of massage it a bit over the bias tape, because it does want to go somewhere else. And if your gusset has been too large for your main piece, you might find some waves and crinkles and like this bulky kind of look. Maybe you saw this in some of other makes. So the length of the gusset is essential for a nice finish. So now we will repeat this for pocket number 2. We start by aligning it to the top and bottom centers, right sides together. Make small snips in the gusset piece where it's above the curves, baste together first, and then sew with 7mm seam allowance. If you don't like binding and you try to avoid this, there's also a technique of turning the piece right side out. You'll find a detailed instruction in the ebook. This is not in the video tutorial, or maybe check the Everlea original version for a alternative if you want to avoid the binding. So that was it for pocket number 1 and 2. We can set them aside now because we will need them for the front piece when we assemble the front later on. Well, later on or right now, since the front is the next step that we're making. So we need the front piece, we need the front zipper pocket and the add-on pocket. So make sure you have the right piece. It's the one with the gap in the interfacing, and then lay out your pieces like this. So decide whether you want to add the front pocket or the zipper pocket first. I kind of like to do like a mix, and I'll show you how. I first do the panel only, then attach the add-on pockets, and then in the end I will attach the zipper. So place this above the gap, centered, and you can feel this with your fingers and kind of guess where it's centered. If you want to make sure, a great way to do that is simply by taking a pin and pin it in the center, and then turn the piece around and see, yes, we've hit the center, so this is right. So I will sew them together just along the edge of the decophyllite. So here you can see, don't sew through the decophyllite, simply sew in the gap so the main and the lining fabrics are connected. Then cut the center line, but not all the way because it starts and ends in this V kind of shape. So cut as close into the edge as possible without cutting into the seam. That's important. If you cut in the seam, you would have to do this again, okay? So be careful, but go as far as you can. And then put the facing through the gap and shape out the edges with your fingers and give it a press. So what I usually do is I like to attach the add-on pockets first and then take care of the zipper pocket as I did in the instruction. This here is a bit easier to do when the add-on pockets are not attached, but the zipper linings can be in the way. So if you install the whole zipper pocket in the beginning, it will disturb you attaching the add-on pockets. Do you know what I mean? So this is kind of in-between compromise. So another thing I tried with this one was I was playing around with glue a little bit. So I thought, why not glue this down to be out of the way? So yes, as you can see, this is a contact cement, I think, and I've used this to work a bit with faux leather and raw edges, and I failed miserably, so it was still standing at my working space. So I thought, why not? Let's try this experiment. So what I did, I just applied a tiny bit of it, very thin layer, on the fleece, and then pulled down the panel so that it's like shaped out nicely. And I mean, if you want to do this, you can do this, you can skip this, do whatever you like, okay? If you could also use some double-sided tape for that, for example. So I glued my fingers as well, so okay, focus, Sarah. We will now attach the add-on pockets. So you'll find the measurements on way to place them on your pattern piece A. So as you can see, I've used a ruler and another measurement just to place this correctly, and you just take this from your pattern piece, okay? And then take some chalk or a fabric marker and draw the outline of the template, and don't forget to also make the markings on the centers, top, bottom, everywhere. Just transfer the markings to your A piece and repeat this then with pocket number 2 template. Place it the correct way and trace the outlines with some chalk or fabric marker, just like that. And we will start by connecting pocket 1 first. So take some pins and start with the top and bottom center, align them, and then check if the pocket fits nicely within the drawn markings, because now will be a time to make some adjustments. And not when you're sewing, because that's, no, you'd have to do it again. And another reminder, do not use faux leather vinyl for the gusset piece. It's too hard to attach, it can be too bulky, it's very hard to handle, even though your machine is a strong machine that sews through this fabric like butter. Don't do it, okay? And here's what I'm doing. I will align all outer edges just by in the process. If you attach all center markings, it's really hard to arrange the gusset in the night, because I will pull this above the line, as you can see in the curvy section, just so that it's placed correctly. So pull this over the line and then go step by step, stitch by stitch, and then check, no, I need to go further, and then check, am I still in the marked section? Yes, now I am, and the sides are correct at my marking, and then I work my way around it. See, next you can see the top center is connected with a pin, so it's not possible for me to pull this over the edge, and this is really hard to handle. So if you remove the pin now, it's easier to actually follow the marking. When I am past that point, you can see this on the other curvy section. It's easier if you don't have it connected. Of course, you have to trust a bit that you've checked correctly, that it will fit into the markings perfectly. So with the first one, this can be tricky, but once you got the hang of it, it's getting easier. I know this is not a beginner pattern, this is an advanced pattern, and don't expect yourself to be perfect with the first piece you're making, because okay, you can sew, you have sewn many things, but this is the first Everlea that you're making. So give yourself some space and some time to grow. It will get easier the more often you practice. Otherwise, anybody could do this, right? If it's that easy, anybody could. We're making advanced stuff here, so you can be extra proud of yourself. See, this is really hard, the last curve, because everything's connected already and it's not possible to pull this over the edge, so you have to go really slow. You can either lock your stitch, or you can leave a long tail in the beginning and the end and pull this to the back as well. That's totally up to you. Now let's have a look if everything fits nicely, if it's straight and not like leaning down towards one side or something like that. So this looks good. And now I will connect pocket number 2 exactly the same way. I will just connect the top and the bottom center. Sometimes I'm just doing this to show you how this works. Sometimes when I attach my add-on pockets, and I have done them several times, I simply just do this at my machine without even pinning them down. Okay, now we will make the front zipper pocket. So you need to place your zipper on the front pocket zipper piece. Both pieces are right side up. As you can see, my zipper is a bit longer than the measurements, like 20 centimeters. I think it was 8 inches. And both pieces right side up, and then top edge is sewn with a 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 of an inch. Then you fold the zipper away from the lining piece and place it on the other piece the same way, both being right side up, and sew the edge with 7mm seam allowance. So now you have to make sure your zipper closes in the same direction as the zipper add-on pockets here. And you place it like that, fold it open, and the gap centered on top of the zipper. And then sew the two pieces together by sewing a rectangle. And then you can fold down the upper lining piece and trim off the extra on the bottom of the front zipper pocket pieces. And now we need to connect the side and bottom edges with 1 centimeter, but since I've glued the piece down, of course that caused some trouble, but I'm gonna show you when I turn this around. You see, here was no problem. On the other edge I could not, so yeah, I don't really suggest you to glue this down all the way. If you glue it down, make sure the side edges of the panel are not glued down, okay? But now I know for next time. So the front is finished. We can go on with the next step, which will be the back. But the back, we only need to prepare the interior piece because the back stays simple as that with no add-on pockets or anything. So we will do the slip pocket by placing the 2 lining pieces, or like I did here with 1 main piece without the thick interfacing, right sides together. Sew with 1 centimeter seam allowance, but leave an opening at the bottom edge so we can turn this around. Then trim the top corners and the curvy section of this piece and turn it through the opening that we have left in the bottom edge. Use some tools just to shape out everything nicely, and then give it a press with the seam allowance being folded inwards and then top stitch. So with the top edge top stitched and the seam allowance folded inwards, you place it on your main lining piece, 3 centimeters, 1/4 of an inch from the bottom edge and centered, and simply just stitch it on there, and that's it. Now for the hardest part, I think, is final assembly. So we need all the pieces that we have prepared, the second lining piece and bias tape, of course, because we will bind our edges. We do need a piece of zipper for the main zipper closure with the zipper slider attached, and we will sandwich it in between the main zipper tabs, main and lining, and sew the short ends with 1 centimeter seam allowance. So the zipper length needs to be 24 centimeters exact. Then fold the fabrics wrong sides together and top stitch in a U shape so pieces are connected. Mark the center. Make sure it's closing towards the same direction as all the other zippers. Take your front main piece and make some small snips in the top edge where the curves are. Again, check zipper direction. All zippers should close in the same way. And then start by aligning the top edge by the center from the zipper and the main piece. And we will baste the zipper on there first. This is strongly suggested because of the curvy top edge. See, this is not as easy to connect, and it will slip away if you don't baste it first. So make sure it's basted on there correctly, and then place the lining piece without the slip pocket on top of it. Also make some tiny snips in the top edge and put it right side down so the main and the lining pieces are right sides together, and align the top edges. And now you can sew with the correct seam allowance of 7 millimeters, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and fold it like this so it's straight, okay, like this. And make sure there are no wrinkles in between your stitches. Looks good. So we can fold the fabrics wrong sides together, connect the center and the bottom, and then pull on the zipper a bit just for the shape. See, we don't want to lose the curve, so I finger pressed it before top stitching. So this is a slight curve. If you don't shape this before, you can lose the curve or get wrinkles. We don't want that. So let's connect the zipper to the back in the same way. Make some small snips in both, like main and lining pieces. Place this on top, baste first, and then place the lining on top and sew with the correct seam allowance of 7 millimeters. Fold the fabrics wrong sides together. Shape out the top edge, the zipper, pull on the zipper a bit to give it a nice shape, and then top stitch. Next we can attach the main zipper ends, but we need to trim off the extra zipper tabs on the sides. Simply cut them off so you do have a straight line. Then place the main zipper ends right sides together on the side edges, centered, and then sew this edge on both sides with 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8" seam allowance. This is a bit tricky because of the curvy shape. So 1 centimeter seam allowance on both edges, 3/8". Now fold the fabric, the tabs away from the main piece and top stitch, and while top stitching, go a full round by basting together all main and lining pieces, top stitching and basting. As you can see, there are some tiny edges here where the two pieces connect, so simply trim them off with some small scissors for a smooth transition. When that is done, we can make some small snips into the inner curves where I show you right here. All 4 pieces, some small snips in the curvy section. So now the hard part, what I'm talking about, is connecting the piece from the bottom side piece to the main piece. So we made some snips here, and we will connect the bottom center first and secure this with some clips, and then we will start at the top and work ourselves down to the bottom. So align the top first. See, the side piece should perfectly align with the main zipper end, and the tricky part here is this inward curve is trying their best just to be not connected correctly. So use a lot of clips. Make some small snips in the gusset piece, in the bottom side piece where it's above the front, and use clips, and baste first, because when you start sewing the pieces together, this inward curve on the top is really trying to, here this one is really slipping away all the time. So strongly suggest you to take extra special care to make sure the edges are aligned perfectly and basted together before you sew with the correct seam allowance, because it will slip away. You can do this in multiple pass as well, because sometimes it's easier to sew or to baste with the front being on the bottom. Sometimes you want the side to be on the bottom. You can baste this in different positions. This is what I do sometimes if I didn't get this right. So this is just the basting first. I've repeated a few times the basting, and then I check if I just connected everything correctly. And next we will sew this edge with the correct seam allowance, and within the same step I will include the bias tape. So when you include your bias tape, place it below the top about 3 centimeters, 1/4 inch, because we do want to avoid some bulk in the top. So but start sewing at the top and use the correct seam allowance of 7 millimeters, 1/4 inch. Then check again if you got everything right. See, there's a gap, but don't worry about this raw edge being, it will be like in the top corner. You will not see this. So when the bias is attached, you can fold this over the raw edges and secure with clips, and then give it a final top stitch just to secure the bias on the raw edges. And that's basically what I think the hardest part about this pattern. Next, we will repeat this with the back. Again, we will connect the bottom first and then work our way from the top towards the bottom with clips. Make your snips, baste first, and then sew with 7 millimeters seam allowance, including the bias, or you can do the bias later on if you have sewn the correct seam allowance. If you find that difficult, that's no problem. And then bind the edges, and the main body is done then. Okay, this is looking good, looking good. Now it's getting easier. So we will attach the D-rings now. So take the D-ring tabs. Of course, you can use larger D-rings. I've used 2 centimeter wide ones. And then we will make the tabs first by folding the raw edges towards the center and top stitching them. Repeat with the other tab and then thread a D-ring on each tab with the raw edges being in the center. And then baste together the short ends. Align the short ends and then baste them together. So now we can place the D-ring in the sides because there's more space than a tab. I've created this once before with the exact same measurements and it was like almost impossible to turn right side out, so this is the reason why it's wider. I let mine stick out about 5 millimeters, just a tiny bit, but you can align them perfectly if you want your tabs to be visible a little bit more. Then sew this with 1 centimeter seam allowance and make some extra stitches for extra strength. Trim the corners and then turn the bag right side out. The first moment you see your final bag, so turning can be hard, but it's like a reward, right? When you see your bag for the first time. So shape out everything, especially the front pockets need an extra shape, and then you can pull on the D-rings to get this tab here out of this to get it to the right side, and use some tools to shape these corners. I use chopsticks and I've lost my pink chopstick. I need a new chopstick here because these are my daughter's chopsticks. And then the main body is done, so give it some shape, maybe a press if you can. Of course, remove the masking tape and all the markings that you've drawn on your pieces, and then we're almost done. It's just one last thing, which is the strap. So I made my strap from webbing. It's a 4 centimeter wide webbing, and I will thread on the slider first, give it a double fold, and then connect this in a rectangle shape by stitching a rectangle to these layers together. Next, you can thread on the first swivel clasp, make sure it's not twisted, and then pass the webbing through the slider again on top of the other webbing and thread the second swivel clasp on the end, give it a double fold and secure with stitches. And that's basically it. You're done. You can be extremely proud of yourself because this is not an easy make. I hope you enjoyed this make though, and maybe you've learned something new. Let's sew many more bags together. You'll find my advanced bag making patterns on Etsy and on Patreon. Come visit us on Facebook and show off your amazing work. Social Bag Makers is the name of the group, and I hope to see you around. Happy sewing!